Welcome, friends, to Breakfast in the Ruins, a Michael Moorcock-flavoured podcast. As you'll know if you're a regular listener, we love our Moorcock, but this podcast was also inspired by the reading provided to me by my old grandad Pops back in the 80s. So, from time to time, we venture out and explore other odds and sods that fit into that wheelhouse, and thus it was that a year or two ago, whilst on our jollies, Phil and I did a podcast on E.C. Tubbs' first Doomrest book, The Winds of Gath. Well, we've just been on our holidays again, and this time we decided we would just throw it open to Phil to choose something suitable. And she chose Graham Masterton's The Revenge of the Manitou. Not for the first time, we found a combination of delights and surprises, some fun, and some, well, not so much fun. Of all the horror books we've covered over the past 6 years or so, this one was perhaps the most stark in terms of swinging wildly between fascinating and fairly well-judged cultural observations, for the time at least, and frankly, some downright rotten examples of just how dodgy 70s fiction can be when viewed through a modern lens. But this is a horror story, an effective one for the most part, so expect mysterious powers, hideous deaths, a surprise appearance from a biggie of cosmic horror, the biggie, really, and references to some deeply unpleasant violence that we acknowledge but do not dwell on the details. But most importantly, we got to check out a couple of tangentially related movies and experience the return in novel form of one of our favourite 70s horror movie pairings in Harry Erskine and John Singing Rock. So, sit back, don your fake moustache, and prepare your parlour for customers, and join me and Phil as we bear witness to The Revenge of the Manitou. We're back in Derry and Tom's, and who's with me in Derry and Tom's?
It is I, Phil.
Hello, Phil. Welcome back to Derry and Tom's, Phil. When was the last time you were in Derry and Tom's?
Just you and I, a long, long time, but we've done, I think the last time, it was either with Loz or Graham. We did 101 with Loz, and I think we've done Graham. We did something with Graham this year.
You know what? My memory's terrible. But anyway, welcome back to Derry and Tom's.
It's lovely to be back.
So we're recording this at the tail end of our holiday.
We are.
And this is something... We did one a few years ago called the Old Pier Bookshop Special, which was our holiday, and we selected a book that we could get 2 copies of from the Old Pier Bookshop. And on that occasion, it was...
E.C. Tubbs?
It was E.C. Tubbs' The Winds of Gath. That's right. Which... I think that ran for about 2.5 hours, that one. I think we both agreed that one probably ran a little bit too long, so maybe we'll try and keep this one a little bit more concise.
Yeah.
But this one isn't an Old Pier Bookshop special, but it is a holiday special of sorts. It's a shame we can't call it the Michael Moon's Bookshop Special, because we went to Michael Moon's in Whitehaven, didn't we?
We did.
Which is a very nice bookshop.
Very nice.
But... we'd already selected what we're going to talk about this evening. Well, I say we'd already selected. You'd already selected what we're going to talk about this evening.
Yeah, you'd said to me before about why don't I choose, and I just thought something that I'd really like to read that's a bit different.
Yeah.
And that's how I came up with Revenge of the Manitou, because of the film, and we've talked about Manitou so many times.
Yeah.
It comes up in conversation, and I just... How many times have we said to people, you've got to watch the film? Tony Curtis is amazing.
Yeah, he's absolutely brilliant.
And I just thought, I'd like to read.
Yeah. So we talked about the film of the Manitou when probably 2.5 years ago now, when we did a sort of Christmas special. When over the Christmas holiday we thought, let's do The Devils of D-Day by Graham Masterton. I'm just trying to remember, did we do it? I think we might have done it as part of the Halloween run, because we've got into the habit of doing more than one book at Halloween, haven't we? But we only got halfway through it. So we ended up doing Devils of D-Day Part 2, Manitou Boogaloo, over the Christmas period. And because we watched the Manitou film, which was the only film we really knew of at the time that was a Graham Masterton-sourced movie made in the 1970s. And what did we think of the Manitou?
I just want to say it's interesting that I would choose him, especially after I put one of his books, in Room 101.
Oh, you did? You did put a Graham Masterton book in Room 101.
But that was one of his newer books.
Yeah. We won't talk about that in any depth. Folks, if you want to know what Phil thinks of one of Graham Masterton's books and why she might put it in Room 101, listen to episode 101 when Loz, Phil, and I all talked about some things that we'd rather see the back of. Because we're extraordinarily lazy when it comes to Christmas. When we do our Christmas special episodes, we try and do something simple that doesn't require a vast amount of homework. And that was our lazy idea. And it wasn't a quiz. Because we've done quizzes a couple of times, haven't we? But it wasn't a quiz on that occasion. Yeah, but the Manitou film is just bloody fantastic, isn't it?
And we rewatched it again recently.
Yeah.
And we both read Manitou before we went on to Revenge of Manitou.
Yeah.
And we didn't speak about that, and I know it was a little while ago. But I think, I can't speak for you, but I think you're probably as disappointed as I was that some of his friends were killed off.
Yeah, we'll get to some of the details about differences between book and film. But yeah, one of the things I loved most, after Tony Curtis as Harry Erskine with his fake moustache, and who's basically what is. So let's just talk about the Manitou plot for a moment. Not in detail, because I'm sure regular listeners to the podcast will remember us talking about the Manitou. But the setup is that Karen Tandy, a young woman, develops a mysterious tumour on the back of her neck that grows rapidly, but oddly seems to pulse like there's something moving around inside it, and it grows really, really quickly. And she goes to hospital for surgery. Doctors are baffled by the tumour's behaviour and resistance to treatment. So Harry Erskine gets involved in the scenario.
Yeah, well, they realise it's a fetus. It's growing like a fetus, which is kind of worrying. He gets involved because he, in his psychic role, looks after. Well,
he's a hokey psychic, isn't he?
For older
fleeces
women
old ladies
with
of
a lot
their
of
money,
money
by charming them and reading their cards.
And I believe one of them was her aunt.
Yeah, so in the book, her aunt is one of his customers, but in the film, he has a past history with her.
A love interest. Yeah.
So she's like an old flame. So I suppose in the film they just like streamlined that a little bit.
And it makes a lot more sense for why he would be visiting her in hospital.
Yeah.
Because he spent that time with her before she went for her surgery.
Yeah, so it works either way, doesn't it? It works either way.
It didn't bother me that it was different to the book, that bit of it.
So he initially shrugs it off, but he in the book he experiences visions. And the aunt is experiencing visions, and lots of people are experiencing visions of an old Dutch sailing ship. That's not something that's in the movie. Once again, people are having these shared visions, so there's obviously something going on. Karen gets admitted to hospital for surgery. She starts speaking in tongues. They try and do surgery on her tumour. It goes horrifically wrong. Meanwhile, one of Harry's customers, an old lady, goes very odd, floats off down a corridor and flies off down the stairs and breaks her neck, which is really, really traumatising.
I loved him at that point, how he responded to her holding her.
Really sweet, isn't it?
Yeah.
Tony Curtis is really good in that film.
Yeah.
He absolutely knows what he's playing. He's playing like a hokey, fake card reader. At one point he says, "I'm not a buyer, I'm a seller." So he doesn't actually even buy that there's any truth to any of it. But he gets freaked out, and he does genuinely seem to have an affection for these old ladies who pay him to read their cards.
But that's also why he went to his friend who he knows has real ability.
Yes, and they're the friends who he goes to his groovy San Francisco cultist mates, played in the film by Stella Stevens is one of them, who I think men of my generation will remember from the Poseidon Adventure as Rogo's wife, wearing his shirt for most of it and not a lot else. The wonderful Stella Stevens. But yeah, in the book, they die horribly.
Yeah.
Oh no, which is really disappointing. They survive in the film, which keeps my hopes alive that, well, it's full-on hope now because that film is 48 years old, that there will ever be a sequel with Harry Erskine and his groovy San Francisco cultist friends. Oh no, sadly, it's not going to happen, is it? Oh, what a shame. So they go to an old anthropologist. He puts them onto the idea that it could be an ancient Indian or Native American shaman or medicine man called Misquamacus. Misquamacus? I can't remember how to pronounce it in the film.
I was listening to it in the film, and I'm pretty sure they were saying Misquamacus.
Misquamacus, yeah. The anthropologist also points Harry at Singing Rock, John Singing Rock, a modern-day Native American medicine man. And I think slight difference in the book. In the book, he's like a suit wearing, he's a little bit slick. Whereas in the film, when he's played by Michael Ansara, he's just wonderful. He's got so much charisma.
Didn't he have greased back hair in the first one, and then he had a different style in the
yes,
follow-up?
that's right. Yeah,
It was of his time, wasn't it?
yeah. Whereas I think in the film maybe it's a little bit cliche.
It was like, yeah, this is how an Indian would
This
look.
is how a Native American medicine man would look today, i.e., long hair,
Beads
and necklace, denims, living on a dusty ranch.
a waistcoat.
Waistcoat, yeah.
Whereas in the book, actually, Harry was like, "Oh, you're not how I expected you to look."
That's right, yeah. He's wearing a suit because I think in the book there's a reference to how Singing Rock has been assisting with some of the anthropological work around Wounded Knee. And that's not something that's mentioned in the film. But when I read that, I was like, oh, that it reminded me straight away, and the film and the book, it reminded me straight away, and we'll talk about this a little bit, Poltergeist 2, because there's a Native American medicine man who wears denim and a waistcoat and all that stuff in Poltergeist 2. And there's also a reference to Wounded Knee in Poltergeist 2, where the dad, because it's called Taylor, isn't it? This medicine man is trying to help him with the poltergeist infestation, and dad of the family is not entirely convinced by him, thinks it's all a bit hokey and a load of old bullshit. And at one point, what does he say? He's got this line: "I've got nothing against these people. I read Bury My Heart at Wounded Knee. I got through most of the chapters. I think I might be 1/10 Indian on my mother's side, but she won't talk about it." So yeah, Wounded Knee gets a mention in both ways, because I think Wounded Knee the book came out in the 70s, Bury My Heart at Wounded Knee, and it was a big moment in a reckoning for American culture and actually examining their own attitudes to what they'd done to the Native Americans. And I think one of the most interesting things about this book, particularly when we've read some Graham Masterton books, and you've actually put Graham Masterton book in Room 101, and I read one called Plague, where there are some fairly alarming examples of basic racism. This book is surprisingly even-handed, to be honest, because when it comes to thinking about how Native Americans or Indigenous Americans or just Americans, the original Americans, are dealt with or treated in 70s, 80s, 90s, even, or Poltergeist 2 or any of these things, there's a level of, I suppose Orientalism is the wrong word, but it's a similar kind of thing. There's probably a better word for it. I think Masterton treads a fairly commendable balance on one level, in that him and his characters are clearly acknowledging the crimes committed against the people in North America as it was colonised. But on the other hand, is definitely engaging in that Orientalism kind of idea of weird mysticism. Oh, the weird, and they're otherly, and they have gnarly powers, and all that stuff. That the spooky powers that white man can't comprehend. But I think the balance is quite good, because it is a horror story after all, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, I have to say, I really enjoyed when we did Devil's a D-Day.
Yeah.
And I felt the same in Manitou. I got through it really quick.
Yeah.
I was really looking forward to the Revenge of Manitou.
It's essentially a cosmic horror story, isn't it? It's got Lovecraftian elements. The central white character is effectively a charlatan, while the key Indigenous American character is shrewd, operates in both worlds, wields all his useful knowledge and skills. And from that perspective, it's quite curative of Lovecraft's unfortunate tendencies and attitudes, which is quite refreshing. So, I think Graham Masterton actually did have quite an interesting and relatively uncontroversial, perhaps, or there's nothing worse than reading a 70s novel, as we've done with some of these horror stories, and you get those unedifying examples of 1970s attitudes, which actually we will get a little bit in Revenge of the Manitou.
Yes,
in all honesty. Yeah. But he did have his moments in the Manitou, not Revenge of the Manitou. "Maybe we're totally mistaken," said Amelia. "Perhaps the spirit is somebody living today. I mean, a hooked nose doesn't have to be Indian. It could be Jewish."
Yes.
Ouch. Oh, crikey. Obviously, that's the character saying that, but again, it's reflective of certain things, isn't it? But anyway, back to the story. We know the tumour's not a growth. It's a developing fetus. It's a shaman. It's Misquamicus. And it's getting terribly mutated because they're continually X-rayed it. So Miss Guamicus is getting more and more angry because it's affecting him and stunting his growth and everything else. Doctors and hospital staff initially are like, nah, bullshit. But they soon change their minds when nurses start getting turned inside out. That's quite unpleasant, isn't it?
Yeah, but also when it got to the point where it could control her and she was saying the light,
Yeah.
and they worked out it was the X-rays.
Yeah, yeah. Nurses don't do too well in the Manitou, do they?
They really don't.
They have a really bad time. Yeah. Get turned inside out, get frozen solid. Oh, yeah, all sorts of terrible things.
But it is just the nurses.
Yeah, yeah. I think the doctor cuts his own hand, doesn't he?
He does.
It's like, oh, unlucky doctor. Fucking nurses got turned inside out. But Musquamicus finally fully reincarnates, and it's pretty grotesque. He unleashes supernatural chaos, and a battle rages inside the hospital. Singing Rock tries various rituals. I think the film does quite a good job on this stuff, particularly with like the cosmic horror stuff.
Yes.
But it's the book definitely gives you the idea that Musquamicus is so pissed off for two reasons. I mean, you know, he wants to come back to life because his Manitou only has so many opportunities to reincarnate over time before he finally goes to the great outside, I think they call it.
Well, I think they worked it out that after that failed one in Manitou, that he had only one more, and at that one he needed to get to the great outside.
Yeah, they changed the rules a little bit in Revenge of the Manitou, don't they? But we'll get to that. So you've got this terrible arena of horror, and Musquamicus is trying to summon ancient powers known as the Great Old Ones. Oh, sounds familiar. Obviously Lovecraftian. But long story short, they sort it all out with a techno-mystical solution by channeling the Manitou of the hospital's computer system.
Yes, because everything has a Manitou.
Everything has a Manitou. So even if cops arrived and tried to shoot it, Musquamicus would turn the Manitous of the guns against the police.
But Musquamicus doesn't know about technology,
No,
Manitous.
He doesn't understand computers. He has no power to resist it. So you get this crazy twist at the end. Pretty outlandish one from our perspective when you consider how shit System 1 is. So I should point out other, substitute System 1 for your patient record system of choice. but the idea that would turn the Manitou of the System 1 network against a Native American medicine man's mutated form. Yeah, well, it's a bit weird. But it does work. Spirits of electricity and machinery are summoned. It works, is banished, defeated by that alliance of modern and ancient forces. And Karen lives, although forever marked by the experience. She doesn't come back in Revenge of the Manitou. But Singing Rock warns, Musquamicus is not destroyed, only sent back, and he'll have another go at some point. Yeah. So, yeah, but we did watch the movie again. Some more reflections, as you pointed out. His groovy San Francisco cultist mates all die, which is terrible. Not having that. I've retconned that in my head. In my head, they're all still alive. But we didn't talk about this before, I think. But it was directed by a guy called William Girdler, who was really prolific in the 70s. He directed 9 films in 8 years, between 71 and 78. And the last one was The Manitou. The other ones were Asylum of Satan. That's a great title, isn't it? 3 on a Meat Hook. That's fucking... What an ace name for a film. Zebra Killers. Abby. Oh, that's a bit disappointing, that one after the others. Sheba Baby. Project Kill. That's a good one. And then at this point, I'm reading the list, I'm going, what I know. Grizzly. I remember Grizzly. I'll talk about Grizzly in a moment. And The Day of the Animals. So the only one I was really aware of is Grizzly. I do remember watching it donkeys years ago. And so I looked it up and tried to find a copy, because we did watch it, didn't we?
We did.
Yeah. At one point, it was the most profitable independent film ever made.
Oh, wow, I didn't know that.
So it was an independent movie, made a shit ton of money, because Girdler jumped on the Jaws thing. Because Grizzly is basically Jaws, but with a bear, isn't it?
Yeah.
Almost to a T. Complete with death of a child. Well, actually, no, the child doesn't get eaten in Grizzly. He just gets his leg torn off, and then his mother gets eaten in front of him. Still pretty bad.
Yeah.
Still pretty bad. But yeah, Grizzly was great. But Day of the Animals sounds like a hoot. All the world's animals go bonkers and attack people because of the ozone layer or something.
Ooh.
Yeah, ozone layer was big news in the late 70s, early 80s, wasn't it? So we're going to have to track that one down. That sounds awesome. What did you make of Grizzly?
I enjoyed it, actually. I mean, it wasn't perfect, but what is. But I liked it. It was like the two female campers.
Yeah.
Sorry, spoiler. Who got eaten right at the start.
Yeah.
The officers weren't like lusting after them when they came. They just said to them, "What's your plans? When are you going? Make sure you come to the desk and let us know you've gone."
Yeah.
Because obviously we've got a lot of people in the park, and sadly they didn't make it.
No. It was nicely grounded, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And also, I also like the fact that all of the protagonists in it are like middle-aged. They're not like young, hip, hot people. Christopher George plays the ranger, who's the Brody character. So Christopher George plays the ranger. He's middle-aged. He's a bit tired. He's a bit ragged. Constantly lighting cigarettes and smoking.
You forget from that era, don't you? Just how much.
Yeah. A guy called Richard Jekyll, who loads of people will remember from 70s movies, maybe 80s movies as well. He plays the Richard Dreyfuss type, who's the bear expert, not the shark expert. You've got the guy with the helicopter, not the guy with the boat, who dies at the end when the helicopter gets wrecked by the bear. And you've got the park supervisor. I will not shut the park.
Yeah. Oh, God, it is.
Yeah, it's just Jaws, isn't it? But when the bear goes to work, it's really violent. And that shot where the bear grabs the kid, and it's obviously someone in like a fair coat grabbing the kid, and the kid's going, "Aye," and trying to punching at this fake fair bear, and then it cuts to a shot of him on the floor with his leg torn off and blood everywhere.
Your reaction was it was priceless. You couldn't believe it.
It was fucking amazing. It was beautiful. Yeah. So it's Jaws with a bear. But the
other thing, sorry, just butting in, is a number of times nowadays you watch movies and they'll bring something up and then forget about it.
Yeah.
So the fact that he told the girls to sign in and then followed up when they hadn't signed in.
Oh, yeah, everything's set up beautifully.
Oh.
Everything's logical. Yeah. Everything's set up beautifully. Yeah.
It's not like when you sometimes hear something and it's like, oh, is that forgotten now then?
Yeah. That was our second Kill a Bear movie in a couple of months as well, wasn't it? Because we watched that film Prophecy about the mutant bear that also had Native Americans in it. But in that case, it was Armand Asante browned up. Yeah. Yeah. He did a fair job. But that was quite a good film as well. Prophecy, yeah. Giant mutant bear.
We nearly watched a third, but it was shocking.
Oh, yeah, we only got half an hour into Cocaine Bear, didn't we? Cocaine Bear is a a distant third to Prophecy and Grizzly, I'm afraid.
Yeah.
You know what? Watching Grizzly made me want to watch, though? Snow Beast. Snow Beast was like super third rate, but I loved it when I was a kid.
It's never ended.
Yeah, so you never know, I might end up watching Snow Beast at some point. Yeah, so Grizzly was great. The sad thing about William Girdler, though, is it was his last film, and then he died in a helicopter crash before it got released.
Oh, no.
Yeah, so who knows what William Girdler would have got up to. Yeah, but, Grizzly made shitloads of money, so he did Day of the Animals, and that was a bit of a flop. But the Manitou was a proper studio-funded film with a star and a budget, so
do you know why they didn't do another?
Maybe it didn't make enough money. I don't know. We should talk about, actually, what year was the Manitou written? Let's have a look. So the Manitou was 1977. Revenge of the Manitou was written 1979. So he wrote it the year after. But I suppose the 1970s wasn't really the whole franchise thing and sequels thing wasn't really still a massive thing like it is today. You did get sequels like French Connection 2 and things like that, and Dirty Harry 2, and well, it wasn't called Dirty Harry 2, was it? What was it called? Magnum Force. Was the second Dirty Harry film Magnum Force? Dirty Harry, Magnum Force, The Enforcer, Sudden Impact.
You see, only you would know all that.
A Deadpool, yeah. So sequel. Obviously, you had Planet of the Apes sequels, but it was a much rarer thing to get sequels in those days. And maybe the Manitou just didn't make enough money, to make it worthwhile. Or maybe with William Girdler being the writer, producer, director, and him dying before it came out, maybe any idea of any sequels sadly died with William Girdler, which is a shame.
I'd like to have seen Tony Curtis and John singing rock come back.
Yeah, I would. But, and this is something of a spoiler, I think.
Is it a bit early?
Well, no, all I was going to say is I think if Tony Curtis had come back and the second Manitou film had been Revenge of the Manitou, it wouldn't have been as good as the first one. Because Revenge of the Manitou, for all that it has some good stuff in it, it ain't the Manitou.
No.
Is it?
But how often do you see that?
Well, that is true. There is a point there.
I have to say, I was hooked from the very start. It was a very different take.
Yeah, it was good.
But I'll wait till you're ready to...
Yeah, just before we go on to Revenge of the Manitou, just going back to that idea of Orientalism, for want of a better expression, and how it's tackled. Harry is talking to some guy called Jack Hughes, and that's the doctor at the hospital, isn't it? Dr. Jack Hughes.
Who specialises in tumours.
Yeah. As Jack Hughes grinned, don't you think that a question that everybody who helps other people ask themselves? I ask myself that question 10 times a day. When you're a doctor of medicine, you take them for granted. People come to you when they're sick, and they think you're terrific. But as soon as they're well again, you cease to be interesting. Some patients are grateful. I get Christmas cards every year from some of them, but most of them won't even recognise me if I bumped into them on the street. I guess you're right, I said. Because this is actually, I forgot to mention, this is all from Harry Erskine's point of view, this book, isn't it? Whereas I don't think Revenge of the Manitou is. It's not first person, is it? I know I'm right, replied Jack, but I think this case is something different. I'm not interested in this case for the usual reasons. The way I see it, this thing that's grown in Karen Tandy represents a whole medical and cultural problem. What do you mean? Jack Hughes stood up and came over to sit on the edge of his desk right next to me. Look at it this way, he said. The fascinating thing about America is that it was always supposed to be a brand new nation, free of oppression and free of guilt. But from the moment the white man settled here, there was a built-in time bomb of guilt. In the Declaration of Independence, there's even an attempt to gloss over this guilt. You remember? Jefferson wrote about the merciless Indian savages whose known rule of warfare is an undistinguished destruction of all ages, sexes, and conditions. Right from the beginning, the Indian is not counted as an individual who is endowed by his Creator with those certain inalienable rights. Gradually, the guilt of what we did to the Indians has eroded our sense of owning and belonging to our own country. This isn't our land, Harry. This is the land we stole. We make jokes about Peter Minuit buying Manhattan Island for $24. But these days, that kind of deal would be considered a theft, an out-and-out con. Then there's all this business about Wounded Knee and every other Indian massacre. We're guilty, Harry. There's nothing we should or could do about the past. But we're still guilty. Masterton's characters in this, and this is written in 1978 or 77.
77.
77 or 76, yeah. And there's a bit of overleaf. It says, in a strange way, Jack Hughes was right. I did feel something. There was a tiny part in my brain that wanted him to survive. Talking about Miss Guamacus. If there was a way in which both Karen Tandy and the medicine man could live, then that would be the way I would choose. I was frightened of him, I was terrified of his powers and his mastery of the occult, but at the same time he was like a mythical hero of legend, and to destroy him would mean destroying some of America's heritage. He was a lone survivor from our country's shameful past, and to kill him would be like grinding out the last spark of the spirit that had given the United States such a colourful and mystical background. He was the last representative of original American magic. Yeah, so Harry goes on something of a journey in this book, which is quite fascinating. I mean, it's funny that it took an Englishman to write this book, not an American, because of course we know Graham Masterton is English. But yeah, so it's a fascinating read when you consider all these different aspects.
I think it helped as well his friendship with Singing Rock. He showed him something totally different, and he obviously knew limited amounts about the Indian culture.
Yeah, well, I mean, Masterton's obviously read Bury My Heart a Wounded Knee by D. Brown.
No, I meant Harry Erskine.
Oh, yeah, but I mean, he's writing from the first person, so Harry Erskine is an extension of the novelist to some degree, even though he's putting himself out there and creating a character. But yeah, but to actually include this in a book which ended up being a really, really popular bestseller in the USA as a horror book in the 70s, and he actually talks about and acknowledges how Native American culture was systemically pulled apart and deconstructed in a planned and terrible manner in the 19th century. It's pretty progressive, I suppose. Unfortunately, some of his other attitudes aren't quite so progressive, sadly. But, these Manitou books, they are, despite the flaws, surprisingly detached from the views that prevailed in westerns that we watched as kids. Certainly, I think it's westerns of the 40s, 50s, and 60s that had Native Americans or the Indians as hollering, whooping stuntmen in brownface for the most part. falling off horses, threatening Audie Murphy or John Wayne or wherever. I mean, even the more progressive in inverted commas, what did they call them? They called them revisionist westerns. This modern view still hadn't really penetrated the zeitgeist by the time Masterton wrote the Manitou, and that's what's interesting. There's a few others, Little Big Man had been out, but for most of them, even the revisionist westerns, the Indians are still savage bad guys. So good for him, I should say. But it's a horror book, not a sociology text. At the end of the day, so the Manitou is a rotter, and that doesn't stick for long. And the book is a lot nastier than the film, with him turning nurses inside out and butchering coppers and drawing crazy symbols in blood using the bones. And the scene where he births from the tumour sac in the poor lass's back is pretty horrific.
It really is. It really is.
It's pretty horrific.
I remember thinking, yeah, that skin's not going to go back. Sorry.
That's one of the interesting things in the film, isn't it? After Misquamicus has been birthed, there's a big, just loads of massive folds of nasty skin on Karen's back. Yeah, it's pretty unpleasant. Yeah. The Lovecraftian cosmic horror themes as well are stronger in the novel, with the references to the great old ones. It's great stuff. And it actually directly draws and uses elements from a Lovecraft passage that's quoted before the prologue begins. Where are we? Where is that book?
It is in the Revenge of the Manitou.
Yeah, there is in the Revenge of the Manitou as well. Am I mixing them up? No. In the Manitou, before the prelude, it says, there's a quote from Lovecraft. On being asked what ye demon looked like, the ancient wonder worker Misquamicus covered his face so that only ye eyes looked out, and then gave a very curious and circumstantial relation, saying it was sometimes small and solid, like a great toad, ye bigness of many groundhogs, but sometimes big and cloudy with no shape, though with a face which had serpents grown from it.
It's different.
Yeah. No, this is in the Manitou.
Yeah.
Not Revenge of the Manitou.
But that's what I meant. This one is a different one.
Yeah, so Revenge of the Manitou has another one. So it actually starts with a Lovecraft quote from, I can't remember what it's from. I did look it up. Yeah, so I looked this up and I found a blog. Graham Masterton's got a blog that's still active at grahammasterton.co.uk.
All right.
And he explained the Lovecraft connection. He said, the Manitou was written in the winter of 1974 on a kitchen table in Chiswick, West London, in 5 days flat. My wife, Vichka, was expecting our first son, and I wanted to write a scary story about the unexpectedness of bringing a new life into the world. In those days, I was writing solely for US publishers, and I needed the story to appeal primarily to the US market. So instead of relying on supernatural threats from the old world, I turned to America, which, as far as I know, had never been done before. I remembered an article I'd read about Native American spirits, Manitous, in the Buffalo Bill Annual 1955. And I also remembered the mysterious Indian character Quamus that H.P. Lovecraft had created. Thus was born Misquamicus. So even Misquamicus himself is sourced from Lovecraft. In looking for a way in which the reimagined wonder worker could be defeated, I adapted the idea that H.G. Wells had used for destroying the Martians in the War of the Worlds, and also drew on the true stories of the US cavalry distributing typhoid-infected blankets to Native Americans in order to wipe out whole tribes that had never before been exposed to European diseases. Back then, one of the most virulent communicable diseases was Vietnam Rose, a gonorrhea-type venereal infection which had been brought back from the brothels of Saigon by US soldiers. When I submitted the Manitou to Andy Ettinger at Pinnacle Books, however, he said he wanted a more dramatic ending, a denouement in which the hero, a Harry Erskine, played an active role. That is why I rewrote the last 2 chapters so that Misquamicus would be defeated by the white man's Manitou, the technological spirit inherent in the Unitrack computer against which the magic of the 16th century would have no defence. The Manitou was an instant hit on many Indian reservations, and I still have the framed painting of Sitting Bull which was given to me in a special ceremony by his great-granddaughter.
Wow.
Graham Masterton, 2001. So there you go. Big props to Graham Masterton for writing something that was deeply appreciated. What an interesting bloke. Do you remember when we went to the Sci-Fi Weekender, probably 4 years ago, Graham Masterton was supposed to be on the guest list, and I took my Devils of D-Day book to get him to sign it, but he didn't attend because of illness. What a shame. I could have said, I love Devils of D-Day, like the Manitou, not so keen on Plague. Yeah. But anyway, those passages from a fragment of Lovecraft writing from the mid-1930s that was never completed, that purported to be an account by the Reverend Ward Phillips, pastor of the Second Church in Arkham, in Massachusetts Bay, 1967, called Of Evil Sorceries Done in New England of Demons in No Human Shape, which itself was just one section of thaumaturgical prodigies in the New English canon, but it's spelled it canon. So a classic fictional Lovecraft tome, but it's probably less prominent in Lovecraft pastiches and RPGs. All it did form the basis for August Derleth, The Lurker at the Threshold. So there you go. You get tons of Lovecraft stuff scattered around in various different Lovecraft pastiches, and there's been lots and lots of them over the years. But this one's quite a unique one, I think. But yeah, the Manitou is basically Lovecraftian fiction, just with a twist. Yeah. And it's not the twist that you get in Lovecraft stuff, which is to be horrifically racist about non-white people. It's actually really quite sensitive in some ways. Yeah, so there you go. Well, we've been going over half an hour, Phil. We haven't started talking about Revenge of the Manitou yet. But what are you drinking?
I'm drinking a white wine that we discovered in one of our locals, which we said, oh, kind of like that, and then we bought some ourselves.
Yeah.
So it's a Sauvignon Blanc, a Marlborough, New Zealand, Nikatiki.
Nikatiki. Yeah, we like that, don't we?
And it's very nice.
Yeah. We went in that booze a couple of months ago, and they said, oh, we're really busy. Food's going to take ages. So by the time our food arrived, we polished off 2 bottles of that, and we were a bit planked, weren't we? But we enjoyed our dinner.
We did.
Well, I've got some Tiny Rebels in. I think I drank one of them when I was with Dave doing the room staff, but I'm drinking a Tiny Rebel Club Tropica 5% Tropical IPA. As it's summer, and it's somewhere in the region of 27, 28 degrees even now at this time in the evening, I think some nice ice-cold IPAs are not a bad choice. Basically, I don't want a coconut chocolate marshmallow stout at 12% at this time of night, in this heat. So yeah, that's quite nice. But anyway, Revenge of the Manitou, Phil.
Yes. Like I said, it also starts with a H.P. Lovecraft.
Let's find it. Ye Wampanoag, wise man, Misquamicus, affirmed ye demon had ye name Osadagawa. When I was reading it, I was mispronouncing this even in
There
my
were
head.
so many different Indian medicine men.
Yeah. Ye name Osadagawa, which signifies ye child of Sadagawa. Ye, which is held to be a frightful spirit, spoke of by Antiants, has come down from ye stars. Ye Wampanogs and ye Nansets and ye Narragansets know how to draw it out of ye heavens, but never did so because of ye exceeding great evilness of it. Lovecraft's archaic writing is a little bit irritated, to be honest. But this one's slightly different in that it's not first person, it's not from Harry Erskine's point of view, and Harry Erskine probably don't come in until halfway through, does he?
No, it starts about a young lad and his parents, Toby, and his parents, Neil and Susan.
Mm-hmm.
And strange things start happening.
Yes.
With the little boy.
Yes, they certainly do. Tell us what goes on in chapter 1, Phil.
So, Toby starts by having nightmares. He believes there's something in his wardrobe which is scaring him. And he's also hearing noises when he's awake. So in the nightmare, he keeps hearing a voice calling for Alan.
Alan! Alan! Yeah, he does.
We don't know for a while who this Alan is.
Hello, Alan.
He keeps asking who is Alan. And when his dad comes in, he wonders what's going on with his son. The next morning, Susan is making breakfast like a good wife.
Yeah.
And he mentions it. She doesn't seem as bothered by it. But for some reason, Neil, and maybe because he's seen his son, I don't know.
Well, we also later find out that Neil has some kind of ancestral connection to some of the people involved historically in what went on in the past, don't we? So maybe Neil's got more of a connection to it. Or it's just that Graham Masterton isn't very good at writing female characters. Which could also be the truth.
Because Neil works at a boatyard and then he hears somebody saying Alan as well.
And he sees someone out in the water, doesn't he? Like an apparition.
Then there's problems in school and Toby finds out that some of his classmates is having bad dreams, and then it turns out they are all having them.
Yeah. It's like a setup from an 80s horror film, this. Young Toby's having dreams about a man that comes out of his wardrobe, and he's shouting Alan, and there's a strange figure who seems to be trying to communicate with Neil. Mother is just like, yeah, whatever, I'm making pancakes for breakfast.
Yeah.
But at school, yes, everything's going a little bit weird.
And then he's outside on the plane and he hears the voice again.
Yeah.
But then he sees the apparition. He sees a man and makes him faint.
Yeah.
So he's taken home and he's seen by the doctor, and he doesn't say anything to him, but he later tells his mum that he saw this man.
Yeah.
But he also says he wasn't alive.
So there's lots of strange shit going on. Similarly strange and weird at school, because lots of the other children are reporting having similar dreams, drawing similar pictures. One point Neil goes into school, asks to see the pictures, gets a little bit of resistance from the female teacher. I think we've got to tackle this head on. There are two female characters in this who get more than a couple of lines. That's Toby's mum and the teacher, and the two female characters of note in this book both get raped horrifically, one of them to death. One gets raped by bed sheets, the other one gets raped to death.
By a cold god, an ice cold, so she's frozen solid.
Yeah, it's a bit difficult from that perspective.
Yeah.
So much as we've praised Graham for some of his attitudes in the Manitou, yeah.
And this is why I put one of his books in 101.
Yeah.
I don't feel that there is a need for rape.
Yeah.
And I know when Miss Quammers came back, he said he wanted revenge, and that involved raping of your women and killing of your menfolk.
Yeah.
That's what he was saying, as a revenge for what happened to their folks in the 1800s. But it's this need to do it. The bed sheets didn't need to happen.
No.
And also, the teacher could have just come out dead.
Yeah.
And she was frozen solid.
Yeah.
But the fact that they then lifted up a skirt and you could see a vagina.
And it's awful, isn't it?
And it's like, why?
Yeah, it's really awful. That description of the police looking at her body, and too much fucking detail, Graham.
Yeah.
You know? Too much detail. Unnecessary.
Yeah. She was such a prim teacher. She would be well covered. It just didn't work for me.
Yeah.
Sadly. And I really loved the first half of the book.
Yeah.
I got to know more about Harry.
Yeah.
The sorts of things that he liked to eat, and got a bigger picture, although it kind of didn't fit, because for me, Tony Curtis is Harry Erskine.
Harry isn't really anything in this book.
He's sarcastic.
Yeah. He turns up. He
quite a lot.
Doesn't really accomplish anything. We'll get to the conclusion and how they overcome the threat of Miss Squamicus later.
Then there's the face in the wardrobe, which I thought was really quite creepy.
Yeah, and that's the cover of one of the books that we've got, isn't it?
Yeah. And I believe that Neil saw that as well, so he was already convinced.
Yeah.
And then he saw an old man's face on his son's face. So he just thought he was going bonkers, didn't he?
Yeah.
But Susan didn't see any of it.
Mm-hmm.
So she didn't really believe it as much as she wanted to.
No.
And that's when they spoke to the teacher, because Toby had said they'd been having dreams. And although she couldn't let him speak to them, which is correct, she did agree to get them to order a drawing, which she then gave to him. Which again, I think is a bit suspect.
Yeah.
Why would you allow one of the parents to be given a picture that all of the class had drawn?
Yeah, they're drawing weird pictures of dark stars and all sorts of other things, aren't they?
Yeah.
Cryptical prophecies. Cryptical, that's not even a word. Cryptic prophecies.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then, as I say, he works on the boat and he starts chatting with an old seaman, Doherty, and he starts talking about Bloody Fenner, which is one of Neil's ancestors who was around and was quite a horrendous man.
He was a rumman, wasn't he?
Yeah, he used to take white folks into traps so that they were all caught and killed by the Indians.
Yeah.
He'd do anything for money, is what they said.
Yeah. And I think, one thing that is made quite plain is that there are acts of revenge by the tribes that Bloody Fenner leads them into just in order for payment, because he was just an amoral, terrible wanker. Of 250 odd years ago or whatever, but Neil is his direct descendant.
But Doherty tells him to speak to Billy Ritchie.
Yeah.
So he goes out to see him.
Neil left the store and crossed Lincoln Avenue in the shadowless midday heat. He walked as far as Lake Street, sweating and short of breath, and the house was right there. A small clapboard cabin painted the colour of lawnmowers. It was shaded by maples and firs and looked deserted. Neil went up to the door and knocked. It took a long time, but after a while he heard a clattering sound inside, and the security chain was drawn back. The door opened, and in the dim hallway Neil saw a wizened old man in an invalid chair. "Are you Billy Ritchie?" he asked quite loudly, in case the old man was deaf. "That's me, sir. What do you want?" "I'm afraid it's kind of hard to tell you in one breath, but I was talking to Doty out on the jetty at Bodega Bay, and he said I should come see you. He said you could tell me some stories of the old days." The old man nodded. He was bald, smooth-shaven and toothless, and the only hairy thing about him was the black chinchilla cat which sat in his lap, and which he endlessly stroked. "I can tell you stories, sure. What stories you want to know?" There you go. I'm going to do a stupid voice for Billy. "I'd like to know about the Fenners back in the days of the Wapo Indians, if that's convenient." Billy Ritchie coughed. "Those were bad days. What do you want to know about them for?" "A couple of reasons. For one, my name's Neil Fenner." The old man laughed, and coughed some more. "Sounds like a good reason as any. Tell you what, I'll make you a bargain. Get yourself back down the road there and bring me a 6-pack of Coors and a pint of Old Crow, and that's all I ask in return. I can't tell stories on a dry whistle." You got yourself a deal. 10 minutes later, his hair dripping with sweat and his shirt soaked, Neil came back with the liquor. The old man had left the front door ajar, and as Neil walked up the path, the host called, "Walk straight in there, friend. Close it behind you, though. You never know, might come prowling to steal my valuables." The little house was dark and cool, and surprisingly clean and well cared for. Billy Ritchie, without his legs, had made his home his whole world, and it was wallpapered from floor to ceiling with colour pictures cut from calendars and magazines. Every room was a patchwork of scenic views snipped from tourist brochures, close-ups of butterflies and flowers, religious scenes and snow scenes, cartoons and classic works of art, all interleaved with centre spreads from Penthouse and Hustler. "Most folks comment on every damn picture except the girls," said Billy Ritchie. "But what I say is, if an old gent can't amass some young flesh when he's past everything but splitting contests, then it's a sad world." The old man was sitting in a shadowy corner of the room, his head silhouetted by the lights from the half-closed Venetian blinds beneath him. You know what, I've got my glasses here. Why aren't I wearing them? I should put my readers on, shouldn't I?
That would help.
Put my readers on. I think my Billy accent will improve even more with glasses on. Through the slats of the blind, Neil could see a tangled garden, overgrown with wild grass. "There's glasses on the side there," Billy Ritchie said. "Pour me a beer and a stiff one, and whatever you want for yourself." Neil went across to a low sideboard with a decorated glass front and laid out 3 glasses. He opened a beer for each of them, poured out 3 fingers of bourbon for Billy Ritchie, then he sat himself down in an uncomfortable yellow-painted basket-work chair, lifted his drink and said, "Good health, Mr. Ritchie." The old man raised his glass in return. "Same to you, but call me Billy, and don't worry too much about my health. I lost the use of my legs 20 years ago when I fell off a damn bad-tempered horse, and I've been fit as a damn drum ever since. I've seen a lot, though, and talked to a whole host of the old-timers, and there isn't much that's passed me by." "What do you know about Bloody Fenner? That's what they called him, didn't they?" "Oh, they sure did. Bloody by name and damn bloody by nature, but you have to judge a man like that by the days he lived in, and those days in the Napa Valley weren't easy. This was fine land, and the Indians weren't too happy about handing it over. If you wanted to survive, you had to be real tough, and ready to make the best of things. That's what Bloody Fenner was good at, making the best of things." Neil swallowed beer and wiped his mouth with the back of his hand. "I heard he was a traitor of sorts." Billy Ritchie pulled a face. "Not to himself, he wasn't. He did pretty well in the 1830s, made himself a fair pile of money, and owned a whole stretch of good land up the Silverado Trail. Trouble was, the Fenner family lost most of their acreage in the late 40s after the year of the Bear Flag Party across at Sonoma, when the Californians declared independence from the Mexicans. Fenner had gotten along good with the Mexicans on account of he was smart and wily, and willing to perform a service to any man who paid him. But when the Bear Flag folks took over, they made life so damn difficult for the Fenner family, they sold out and moved to the coast, and I guess the land they bought was where you're living now." Neil nodded. "Part of it, anyway. My grandfather sold about 100 acres during the Depression." Old Billy Ritchie took a mouthful of Old Crow, coughed, and said, "A lot of folks did, especially around Napa. First Prohibition hit the wineries, and then the Depression. There weren't good times." "But what about Bloody Fenner?" asked Neil.
Bloody Fenner? Bloody Fenner was the best damn brawler and fighter this side of the Sacramento River. He knew all the Indians by name, the Wappos and the Patwins, and there were plenty who said he'd been initiated in a Wappo Temescal. The stories say he was a tall man, with a face as fierce as a bear, and that he could shoot a fly off a horse's ass if he was blindfolded and standing on his head. Neil grinned. Sounds like that's one talent that got bred out of the family. Just as well, if you ask my opinion. Bloody Fenner wasn't loved by nobody except for his wife, and by all accounts she was twice as heart-bitten as he was. Neil was silent for a moment, watching the old-timer sitting in his invalid chair, stroking and stroking that black fairy cat. Then the guest said softly, "Did you ever hear of a battle? A battle that Bloody Fenner might have fought in?" "Sure, he fought in plenty. He fought for Jose Sanchez back in the early days, and the story goes that he helped Father Altamira round up Patwins and put 'em to work for the mission at Sonoma. That was back in the late 1820s, and times were raw then, I can tell you."
"I was thinking of one battle in particular," said Neil. "A battle where the white men came off pretty badly, and the Indians did well."
"There were a few of those. I heard tell of a massacre of 10 white farmers and their families by the Wappos up at St. Helena, and there was an ambush of 3 white squatters by Wappos in York Creek. Maybe the worst, though, was the time they say Bloody Fenner took a league of land from the Wappo Indians in exchange for leading 20 settlers and their families into a trap set in the forest up at Las Posadas, close to Corn Creek. The settlers had trusted Fenner, you see, and paid him in gold to act as their scout and interpreter, so that they could lay out claims to farmland in Bell Canyon. But he took them slap bang into a Wappo ambush, and they were all killed. 20 farmers, their 20 wives, and 53 young children.
Neil licked his lips. Did anyone prove that it was Fenner who did it, or was it just hearsay?
What proof did anyone have in them days? The land was rough, and the folks were rougher. You stayed alive if you were hard and dogged, and used your gum without thinking twice. But the stories say that Fenner was the only white man who came out of that massacre alive, and that's suspicious in itself. He said that he left the settlers and rode back along Corn Creek to help bring help from his Mexican soldier friends, but there's nothing to say he didn't. But if he did bring help, it was a sight too late to save anyone. And what was the oddest of all, the settlers' bodies were all scalped, and their ears cut off."
"What was that about that?" asked Neil. "The Wappos were pretty fierce sometimes, weren't they?"
"Or they could be. But what they didn't do was take scalps, or ears, or genitalia like some of the Indians did. It wasn't their style. They were diggers, not fighters, and all they cared about was protecting their good agricultural land from the white men. They weren't interested in trophies."
"You're saying that Fenner took the scalps? A white man took white scalps?"
"You don't have to look so shocked. It wasn't unusual in them days. In fact, some of the old-timers say it was white men who taught the Indians to take scalps in the first place."
"That's horrific," said Neil. Old Billy Ritchie shrugged and swilled some bourbon down with a mouthful of beer. Neil said, "Did you ever see a picture of Bloody Fenner? An engraving or anything like that?"
Billy Ritchie shook his head. "The only drawings I ever saw in Napa Valley in them days were landscapes, mostly forests it were. But I don't think anybody ever took it in their heads to draw Bloody Fenner."
"There's something else," said Neil. "Did you ever hear of a prophecy connected with Bloody Fenner? Something that was supposed to be written on a stone redwood tree?" Billy Ritchie thought about that and then shook his head again.
"No, sir, I can't say that I ever did."
"Then how about the Day of the Dark Stars?" Billy Ritchie lifted his head slowly and stared at him. For the first time since Neil had walked into the house, he stopped stroking the cat, and his old land lay on her black fur like a dead, dried leaf. "Oh, that's a good line. That's a good line. I like that."
"Did I hear you right?" he said in a soft and settling tone.
"The Day of the Dark Stars," repeated Neil. "That was all I said." The old man quivered in his chair, as if a cold wind had blown across the room, but the air was still and growing stuffy, and outside it must have been close to 100 degrees.
"Where did you hear about the Day of the Dark Stars?"
he asked Neil.
"I'll lay my life I didn't believe I'd ever hear that phrase again."
"I don't know," said Neil, reluctant to tell the old man about Toby until he knew what the Day of the Dark Stars was, and why the mention of it seemed to be so unnerving. "I guess I just kind of picked it up." Billy Ritchie looked at Neil as if he knew that he was only telling him half the truth, but then he piloted his wheelchair across the room and silently poured himself another large shot of bourbon. As he screwed the cap back on the bottle, he looked up at Neil and said, "The first and last time I heard of the Day of the Dark Stars was from a trapper I met when I was a young man up in the Modoc Forest. This man was old, and he was thin as a polecat,
and he had scars on every spare inch of his body from fighting Indians and animals. We spent 2 nights and 2 days together, and then we went our separate ways." "But what did he tell you?" asked Neil. Billy Ritchie's eyes were roomy and distant. "He told me about all the old days in Modoc country, so that I could pass his stories on, so they wouldn't be lost. What he said was that once the Indians knew they couldn't hold back the white men any longer, they kind of bowed their heads and accepted their fate after a fashion, because they always knew what their gods would give them revenge. It was a Wapo belief, for instance, that for every Indian who died from cholera or smallpox or shot by scalp hunters, a white man would die in return. They said it might not happen in a month, in a year, or even in 20 years, but that one day the stars would go dark because they would call down the most powerful and evil Indian demons there ever were. The demons they didn't even dare to call down in their own lifetimes, like Nashuna and Palagai and Asadagawa, and that the demons would slaughter a man for a man, a woman for a woman, a child for a child." Billy Ritchie took another swig from his glass, and then he said, "The way I heard it, Nashuna was the demon of darkness, and Palakai was the demon of blood, and Asadagawa was a kind of beast thing that nobody could even describe, a kind of wild demon that scared everyone witless." "You sound as though you believe it," said Neil carefully. The old man gave a wry smile. "I'd believe it before I believe some of the words I read in the Bible. Them Indians knew their lands, you see, and they knew their skies and their waters, and they knew all about the spirits and the demons that dwelt in those lands and those skies and those waters. The way that trapper told me, the day of the dark stars was going to happen before the 20th century turned, but he wasn't sure when, but that was what he was told." Neil raised his eyebrows. "Sounds scary, doesn't it? But who's going to call these demons down? I've been to powwows at a couple of Indian reservations, and there's Indians who come down to Birdacre Bay to fish, and it seems to me there isn't much magic left in any of today's red people." "It's not today's red people you got to worry about. It's the spirits of the red people from out of the past. When this trapper told me what was the greatest of all the medicine men, the 22 most powerful wonder workers from all the main tribes, all their spirits would come together. God knows how, but they'd call down the worstest demons they could and get their revenge." Blimey.
I think you enjoyed that too much.
Yeah, you know what? I'm going to finish the chapter because I'm having a great time. "You mean the ghosts of 22 old-time medicine men who were supposed to be getting together to punish us? Come on, Billy. That's a tall story, and you know it." Billy Ritchie didn't look offended. "People have said that before," he said philosophically. "But let me show you something before you make up your mind that all those old Indian legends were nonsense." He propelled himself across to a small bureau which stood in the far corner of the room and opened the top drawer. He shuffled through a heap of untidy papers and news clippings while Neil watched him silently and drank his beer. "Here we are," said Billy Ritchie after a while, and wheeled himself over. He gave Neil 2 black and white photographs, full plate size, and told him, "Take a close look at those." One of the photographs showed a street scene in Calistoga. Calistoga? Calistoga. Let's go with Calistoga. It was hard to tell when it was, because the town had hardly changed in 50 years. There were horses and buggies, and men in wide-brimmed hats, but it could have been taken any time between 1890 and 1920. In the foreground of the picture stood a group of men with drooping moustaches, and just to the left, sitting on the edge of the boardwalk, was an Indian in a dusty black business suit. He was handsome and well-built, and around his neck he wore strings of necklaces and beads, which indicated that he was a medicine man. The other photograph was taken in the woods someplace. Neil didn't recognize the scenery at all. A group of Indians were standing by a fallen tree, squinting at the camera as if they mistrusted it. Among them was the same medicine man, in a woolen robe this time, but wearing the same necklaces and beads. "All right," said Neil. "It's 2 pictures of the same Indian. What's that supposed to prove?" "Look at the dates on the back," suggested Billy Ritchie. Neil turned the photographs over. One, the street scene in Calistoga, was marked 8/1/15. The woodland scene was marked August 5th, 1915. "I don't get it," persisted Neil. "These were taken 3 days apart. What's so strange about that?" Billy Ritchie cackled. "What's so strange about it is the picture in the woods was taken by a photographer called Lewis Clifton of Massachusetts, up by the Wampanoag settlement on the Miskatonic River in New England. These photographs were taken 3 days apart, sure, but they were also taken 3,000 miles apart." "That's impossible," said Neil. "In 1915 it would have taken almost a week to get from New England to the Napa Valley." That's right. And yet both of these photographs are authenticated. Their dates are plumb correct. Neil peered closer at the calm, amused face of the Wampanoag medicine man. Even though the pictures were almost 70 years old, they had a curious freshness about them, as if they had been taken only a few weeks ago. That's strange. That's really strange. Not strange at all when you know who that is, said Billy Ritchie. That's the best known of all the Indian men, the most powerful Indian sorcerer who ever lived. That's Misquamicus. Misquamicus? That was what they called him, among a whole lot of other names. But the reason I spent some time finding those photographs is because what that trapper told me up in the Modoc Forest. He said that when the day of the dark stars came around, this man Misquamicus would be the fellow to bring all the 22 wonder workers together. This man Misquamicus, he said, was obsessed with taking his revenge on the white folks, and that his whole aim in life was to see white people die in the cruelest way possible. Billy Ritchie began to stroke his cat again. I'd say that the cruelest way possible would be to call down Nashuna and Palakai and Osadagawa and let them loose. Now that would be cruel. There you go. Now I'll stop reading. Oh, I had quite a good time with that, baby.
I noticed.
Yeah, that's my favourite chapter in the book, to be honest. I think that's great. I love all that stuff. I love that kind of mystical old, law and history and all that stuff. I think Masterton actually does it really, really well. Yeah, it's great.
So Misquamicus has gone to Toby because a fenner had helped them before.
Yeah.
And obviously children are more pliable than adults.
Yeah, so Fenner is still helping Misquamicus from beyond the grave.
Although he has no control as a... Is he 8-year-old? A
Yeah,
young child, anyway.
yeah,
Neil decides to go to the police
yeah.
and tell them all this. And as you can imagine, they don't take any of it in, don't
Yeah.
believe a word of it. Plus, it's just before 5. It's the Sergeant Murray.
Yeah.
But it's just, he's been looking at his home time before Neil had walked in.
That's right, yeah.
So
Yeah, he's not interested.
when another officer comes in, he finds a way of getting out the door. Because he asked for more support for the kids, to have an increase in presence, but he went, we don't have the police for that.
Yeah.
So,
Nobody's buying what Neil's selling, are they?
no. And I think what makes it worse is that when he then goes home and you talk to Susan, she thinks he's not acting like Neil, so she don't believe a word of it either, because she hasn't seen anything.
Yeah.
Every time all this happened in the house was with Toby. Neil saw it or heard it, and obviously at the boating lake where the boat where he works, she's not seen anything, so she thinks her husband's a bit overstressed at work.
Yeah, and what is it that convinces her? So Susan realises something is amiss and starts to believe when Toby starts saying, he says something like, I shall kill you. And Susan across the other side of the kitchen whimpered. She could see now how malevolent and red Toby's eyes were, and how his hands clenched and unclenched with impatient strength. And then, at that point, we get the figure comes out of the bedroom. There's a bursting, explosive sound within Toby's bedroom. Neil crossed the landing, taking hold of the doorknob and forced the door open, etc., etc., etc. And then there is this wooden man who he has these communications with. The wooden man says, you are interfering in the schemes of the gods. You are meddling with the past and with the future. And it's all getting pretty cosmic. And the wooden man says, you are a fenner. You will be spared because your ancestor helped my brothers, but only if you accept what is happening and do not try to resist us. If you resist, I shall feed you as scraps of meat to the demons of the north wind. Neil answered breathlessly, I have a right to know. I'm Toby's father. You're going to use Toby and I'm going to stop you. The wooden figure didn't move, but it said in its eerie, distant voice, before you talk about your rights, white man, before you talk about stopping me, remember the thousands of Indian families you slew, and of all those red men who died without rights, not just fathers and sons, but mothers and daughters. Think of the women you raped and mutilated, of the braves you scalped. Then tell me that you have a right to know anything. Carefully stepping backwards, sweating and trembling, Neil found the edge of Toby's bed. He reached behind him and fumbled under the comforter for the sheet. He heard the wooden man creak and those heels knock against the bedroom floor, and he froze. But then the wooden man stayed where he was, and Neil softly took the sheet out, rolled it up into an untidy ball behind his back. The wooden man said, I am the greatest of those outside. the unquestioned master of the wonder-workers of ancient times. I am the chosen of Sadogawa, the instrument of Nashuma. I have scores to settle from times deeper than you can imagine, white man. I have a score with the Dutchmen, for instance, for the diseases they brought to Manhattan. I have a score with the Pilgrims for the way they taught the Wampanoags and the Nansets. I have a score with the settlers and the farmers and the railroad men, for the Cheyenne who died and the Sioux who died and the Apaches and the Paiute. We were one with the lands, white man, and all the forces and influences of the lands, and all the gods and the spirits for whom trees grow and stones are thrust up from the earth. We were the greatest of the nations of the earth, and you slew us with rifles and diseases and empty promises. We shall have our revenge, white man, in the way that is prophesied on the great stone redwood, and you shall all taste blood. Neil slid his hand in his pocket and felt for the box of matches. He could almost hear old Billy Ritchie now. A man of rock or wood is just as vulnerable as rock or wood. The figure said, the white man, Fenner, helped my Wapo brothers in years gone by. He helped them because he understood their struggle and because he had Wapo blood in his own veins. That's why your son is chosen, white man. That's why we were led at last to bring down the spirits of the great Nashuna Asadagawa in this place, at this time. I have a personal score to settle, too. A personal score? Asked Neil. I have visited your time before in the body of a young woman. I was reborn to wreak vengeance on those who laid waste to the islands you now call New York. I was born as a human in my own flesh, but I was destroyed in that form by a white charlatan and a treacherous red man from the plains. That is the personal score I have to settle. I will find the white man called Erskine and the red man called Singing Rock, and I will destroy them both. I am the guardian of the ring, which holds back those demons which are in no human shape. I am the messenger of the great old one, the chosen of Sadogawa. I am the keeper of the elder seal and the worker of wonders unknown in future times. My name is Quamis, known to the Wampanoag as Misquamicus. I have arrived for the day of the dark stars. Oh my God. Yeah. And then Neil sets him on fire.
And he smatters into 1,000 pieces.
Yeah.
Cool.
So Susan's convinced now, anyway. I think he's heard around by this point as well that Billy's dead.
Yes, he finds out a bit later on, actually,
Yeah.
in the next chapter.
Yeah.
I mean, what happens is at school, the kids are playing and they appear to be dancing.
Yeah.
And that's when one of the teachers, Mr. Saperstein, took some pictures. And that's when their teacher, Mrs. Novato, asked him, do you think the kids are acting a bit strange? What they don't see is that they've got a box of lizards. 4 of the kids each take a limb in the mouth and bite down.
Yeah.
So they've started doing ceremonies. And then Neil spoke to Harry, and he said that him and Singing Rock are going to fly out.
Yeah.
Which is a great relief for him that somebody believes him. He finds out about Billy being killed. Freak lightning set his house on fire. So poor Billy and his black cat.
Oh, poor cat.
Yeah.
That's wrong, isn't it? But he's got this name Erskine now, hasn't he? So he tracks down Erskine and rings him. And this is where we get Harry Erskine introduced.
Yeah. But before he arrives, a window explodes and then Susan is raped with her own bedsheet.
Yeah. Yeah, it's quite unpleasant.
And for some reason, Neil was unable to help or stop it.
Yeah.
She said she saw a naked Indian on top of her. So...
Yeah.
It was quite unpleasant, and I didn't feel it was needed.
No, not really. There's enough mad shit going on without introducing something like that.
But then I think Harry arrives. He comes in a yellow Pinto with a slip-in transmission.
Yeah.
I kind of like that.
He's obviously not making much money anymore, is he?
No, I mean, his picture of him, obviously, he wasn't described in the first book, and then we saw the film.
Yeah.
But his nose is too large, his eyes a little too deep set, his chin determined but too fleshy, mousy brown hair thinning, and cheeks permanent colour of 10th Avenue.
Yeah.
I don't know what that means. Sorry, I hope some of the American listeners will know what that means.
Yeah, what does this mean, American listeners? Let us know.
Cheeks the colour of 10th Avenue.
Yeah. And he arrives just after the doctor's been to look at Susan. And Dr. Crowder thinks that it's domestic.
Oh, yes.
So Neil's beside himself because he said it's magic, it was done by magic. And the doctor's like, oh, okay, son. Yeah. There is no suggestion that perhaps the doctor, who believes that Neil is losing it, smashed his own house up, smashed loads of windows, then beat and raped his wife. There is no suggestion at all that the doctor might ring the police. The Doctor's just like, yeah, okay, son, you know.
Yeah.
And just feels a little bit awkward about things. Ah, the 70s.
Yeah. Yeah, we don't need to call the police. I'm sure
Yeah.
Neil's got it in hand.
Yeah. So yeah, Harry's arrived, and you know there are some okay scenes with Harry, but it doesn't really take long before Harry investigates things, and well, fortunately, he gets Singing Rock involved.
Yeah, well, which he said he was going to anyway, but he could get there quicker. But, you know, things like getting a piece of dental floss out of his pocket and starting doing his teeth while he's chatting to him. Obviously, we're not smoking a lot, but that was the 70s. But...
Yeah. In fact, I think doesn't Squamicus blow up his Pinto as well?
He does.
He does, yeah.
It's a rental, though.
He's got him on the car, and Squamicus blows up his burns his Pinto. Oh dear.
So he tells, obviously, Harry everything, and then his wife goes to stay with the Doctor, so she's out the scene, so he can fill Harry in on everything. And also, then they get a call from Dr. Saperstein asking to see the pictures, or wanting to show them pictures because he'd overheard their conversation.
Yeah.
And he found it really interesting because he was taking pictures of the kids dancing in a circle, whereas what came out was smoke in the middle. And
That's
the more
right.
photos that took, the more this smoke had formed.
Yeah.
And it looked like a being in the centre. And he said, I take a lot of photos. It's definitely not an error in my, like too much light or whatever. This is real, but I couldn't see it.
Yeah.
So he's very intrigued and wants to get involved.
Fortunately, finally, they bring Singing Rock back, and there is quite a nice scene where they meet him at the station. It says, they met John Singing Rock at the bus station. He was 50 years old, his face creased with the soft crisscross wrinkles of a South Dakota Indian. But his eyes were sharp and bright, and he walked across the concrete parking lot to greet them with the tensile step of a man 20 years younger. The last time Harry had seen him, his hair had been short and swept back with brilliantine, and he had worn a creaseless mohair suit. But modern trends had obviously blown with the winds across the plains of mid-America, because his hair was longer now and kept in place with Gillette dry look, and he wore a camel-coloured sport coat and bright red slacks. He set down his suitcase on the concrete and held out his arms. Harry embraced him, saying nothing, and for a moment they stood there close, while the other bus passengers looked at them with curiosity. Harry stood back, still holding Singing Rock's hand. "You look like you've been shopping at Gucci," he grinned. "And what's this with the hair?" Singing Rock touched his greying side pieces. "I had to give up that greasy kid stuff," he said. "He kept leaving marks on my teepee." Harry laughed and gripped Singing Rock's arm affectionately. "It's good to see you," he said. "If I ever went past South Dakota, I'd drop by more damned often." Singing Rock said, "Is this Mr. Fenner?" Harry nodded and introduced them. Neil shook hands a little hesitantly, but Singing Rock reached out and placed his hand on top of Neil's and said warmly, "You're wondering why I don't have bones through my nose and feathers in my cap?" Neil was embarrassed. "I guess I never met a medicine man. I really didn't know what to expect." Harry picked up Singing Rock's suitcase and the three of them walked across to Neil's pickup. Singing Rock said, "I'd prefer to wear traditional costume. What's the point of being a medicine man if you don't look like one? But the costumes are pretty rare these days. They take years to complete, and when they're finished, they're works of art. These days, you can't really walk around in a work of art. You might spill catsup on it." I think catsup is ketchup, isn't it? Yeah.
I loved that. It is really nice.
Yeah.
I'm glad you brought it up because I missed it going on to the teacher, Saperstein. That was after Singing Rock had arrived.
Yeah. So the fill Singing Rock on what's going on, and Singing Rock confirms that Misquamicus lived again in the 1830s. That would have been his sixth reincarnation. So it's getting to the point now where this is his last incarnation. And Singing Rock says he's almost ready to take his place in Wajok, and that means he's immensely powerful, immensely strong, and almost unbeatable by any other medicine man. He had to go through a physical rebirth the last time we met him, like a human fetus. Now he's grown himself inside of your son's mind. Don't ask me how he does it. It's beyond my medicine. But he's doing it, and even before he's finished doing it, he's demonstrated some magic that no present wonder worker could even touch. Creating that wooden man, Neil, takes occult powers that could make earthquakes. And that's before he emerged from your son's mind. Before he's ready to zap us with everything he's got. There isn't any doubt at all that he's going to call down Osadagawa. And when he does that, we're really up against it. Yeah. We've been going quite a while now. We'll better speed things up a little bit, I think.
Okay, so we talked to the second teacher, and obviously the kids have all gone out on the school trip, and they've realised this is going to be the day of the Dark Star.
Yeah.
So it's like, oh, but we don't know where they've gone, and the bus driver has rung in sick. And that's when they realise that Doherty, the old sailor, is the one driving, and then we're like, McCormicus is really devious. It's him who got Neil to go to see Richie,
Yeah.
and then it brought in Harry because he wanted.
It's a trap.
He wanted Harry and Singing Rock there so he could have exact his revenge.
Exact his
revenge. So they find out that the bus has still gone to Lake Berryessa, and they find out that a patrol car went to approach the bus, which is halfway over a bridge, and it got blew up.
Yeah.
So they try to speak to the captain. He just won't listen to any of it, because obviously...
Captain Myers, he's a knobhead, isn't he?
Yeah. And it's like, what you on about? And that's when they get the teacher, Mrs. Navato, comes off the bus. She starts walking and drops. Pull her off, and that's when they find out she's dead, and all the stuff about the rape.
Yeah, it's horrific.
Yeah.
And the descriptions are horrific. Unnecessary.
Yeah, and it was by a god called Sack, and I think we need to just move on from there.
Yeah.
But she's rock solid, ice frozen.
Yeah.
So they have to go back to the pickup because the colonel's like, you lot can bog off.
You can understand to a degree Captain Myers' problem, because he's got Harry and Singing Rock and Neil telling him that the kids on the school bus have been taken over by the spirits of 22 medicine men.
Yes.
Yeah, relatable. That might be difficult to take on board.
I mean, they haven't seen anything other... So the windows are all frosted white, which is frost.
Yeah.
Yeah. This teacher's come off. She walked off, but she's dead and she's rock solid from ice.
Yeah.
Which is a bit weird, but you can still understand. Yeah, this man is telling you there's 22 medicine men on there.
Yeah.
So they realise that they've got a bit of time before it's all going to kick off. So they go over to the petrified forest.
Go to some tunnels and find some hieroglyphs.
They know there's some writing. So they get there and it is closed. But Harry uses his charm.
Yeah.
I say that in bunny ears because he is described as a sarcastic mystic by Neil in one of the chapters.
Yeah, so we get this late introduction of this guy, Professor Thorin, who's been examining these hieroglyphs. And he says... Right here on the 6th line it says, the wonder workers shall take their due for the stealing of their lands and the beasts that run thereon, etc., etc. And they shall also raise for this purpose that which sleeps beneath the surface of the waters. Ah, interesting. Who could that be?
Cthulhu?
Yeah, we'll soon find out. They literally want to summon Cthulhu.
Do you know what? They break it down and I didn't put it together.
Yeah.
It's Cthulhu.
Yeah.
It is Cthulhu.
Yeah.
How did I miss that?
Yeah, it's Ka-T-Tash.
Who?
Yeah. Yeah.
How did I miss it?
Ka-Tua-La-Who. Cthulhu. Yeah.
Oh my god.
And after loads of National Guard turning up and trying to shoot them, all of whom die horrifically, because they don't mention the Manitous of the rifles, do they?
They do in a bit.
Do they?
Not at first. They say that... Oh, yeah. So they shoot, and McCrackers just waves his arm at the Manitous of the gun, and the bullets turn around and kill them all.
Yeah.
And the Colonel sends more sharpshooters, not understanding what's happened. Same thing happens, but this time it shoots newspaper people, basic observers on the street.
Yeah.
Everybody has to duck. And then they go to do it again, and Singing Rock makes the bullets all come his way, and he makes them burn up and disappear.
Yeah. We do get a showdown between Singing Rock and Miss Guamacus.
Yeah, after that, he does go out to face him, because he's got his suitcase full of stuff, including the spirit that he's got in a cage, and that starts to go off as McCormicus is pulling on the first god, Nashuma.
There's lots of them.
Yeah, well, the first one, so he calls on Nashuma, and Singing Rock counters by calling down another one and offers one of the 22 medicine man as a sacrifice.
Yeah.
So he wins that round, and Nashuma doesn't come.
Yeah. Singing Rock does pull a fast one, and Asadagawa has curled waving tentacles as well, so it's still all very Lovecraftian. But I've got to say, we're rattling towards the conclusion of this, and Captain Mize is still saying, "You're from a clown show, these are terrorists," and just generally being a complete nega believer. And Singing Rock is saying, "I'm trying to tell you before, Captain, and you just wouldn't listen. Those men out there are reincarnated medicine men from many centuries past. In a while, they will raise from Lake Berryessa a god known as Katualahu. But Katualahu will kill all of us." Captain Mize pulled at his ear. "Katualahu, eh?" "That's right, a beast in no human shape, the most terrible and feared of all the elder gods, the spawn of the great old one himself." Captain Mize looked perplexed. He walked a little way away, and then he came back and said, "Cthulhu?" Singing Rock nodded. "If you look out on the bridge, you can see that they're beginning to call him already." And they do successfully call Cthulhu for a wee while. Anyway, it says, "There was a rumbling noise from the direction of the lake. A humid wind blew for a while and then died away. It left a strange smell behind it, a smell of fish and cold fog." This is all so Lovecraft. "All along the shores of Lake Berryessa the water began to foam and grow agitated. A small tidal wave even washed into Pope Creek below the bridge in a swill of muddy froth." Singing Rock turned and stared at the bridge. He could see Musquamacus, illuminated by the police floodlights, swaying from side to side and singing in a piercing, high-pitched tone. "He's nearly finished calling the Old One," said Singing Rock. "When all 21 of them recite the summoning together, then the waters will open and you will see Cthulhu. Well, I hope you won't. Neil, Harry, you better get in that pickup and burn on out of here. We're not going to stand much of a chance now." "John," said Harry, "I'm not leaving you here." "You have to," insisted Singing Rock. "You're no damn use to me anyway." "John, I'm not going, and that's final." Oh, it's so sweet. So sweet that they're such good friends, but yeah, well.
Well, Singing Rock goes back out again, and as Miss Quamacus is calling another one, he has a counterattack calling Osadagawa,
Yeah.
which McQuamacus was going to call later, and McQuamacus counteract that, so they both disappeared. But Singing Rock's got very, very weak. He's up against 21 medicine men and McQuamacus. But he goes back out again, next time with 2 war axes.
I cannot tell you how upset I was by this.
Yeah.
I cannot put into words how upset I was by the conclusion of this book. And of course, listeners, you all know, you listen to this podcast, you know that we will spoil things for you. But if you want to know what happened to Singing Rock and not have it spoiled for us, stop listening and read this, because we are going to spoil it for you. So, Cthulhu has arrived. Harry could see something that looked like a nest of wriggling, repulsive serpents, something that disturbingly reminded him of every nightmare he'd ever had. It was the raw essence of fear and repulsion, the loathsome horror that crawled on the fringes of the night. It was the ancient, lingering memory that still makes men afraid of things that creep and things that slide, even though they have consciously forgotten why. It was Cthulhu, the spawn of the Great Old One, the most hideous god of madness and fear. All 21 medicine men on the bridge had now raised their arms in obeisance to the elder god and were singing in a low, warbling incantation. They stood in their oahu, their circle, and they drew the overwhelming fog cloud nearer. Singing Rock reached the edge of the bridge and stood there alone for a moment, swinging a war axe in each hand. Then he whooped out a long, challenging call, a mocking call that ridiculed Musquamacus and every other medicine man, a call that any Indian with any pride could not ignore. Harry could see Musquamacus waver with indecision, but then the wonder worker turned and left the other 20 medicine men to continue their call to Catualahu, who now loomed over them in an immense boiling bank of evil clouds, and he faced Singing Rock with an expression of burned-out patience and deep revenge. Singing Rock took 2 or 3 steps forward, and then he began to whirl one of the axes around and around until it was a blur. Musquamacus crouched down slightly in anticipation, but his eyes never left Singing Rock's face, and he looked confident and contemptuous. Harry, over by the fence, found that he was digging his fingernails into the palm of his hand. The magical axe flashed from Singing Rock's hand and flew towards Misquamicus, turning end over end. But even before it was halfway there, Misquamicus gave a quick sweep of his arm and the axe seemed to burst and turn into a black owl, which screeched once and then flapped away on the wind. Singing Rock swung the second axe faster and faster, and he threw it at Misquamicus with a hoarse cry of warlike vengeance. But Misquamicus was quicker and stronger. His arm swept across his chest again, and the axe turned in mid-air and flew back towards Singing Rock. Harry watched in horror as Singing Rock tried to dodge it, but the speed and power of Misquamicus' magic made it unstoppable and unavoidable. With a sharp chopping sound that Harry could hear from 70 feet away, Singing Rock's head was knocked from his shoulders. For an agonising second, Singing Rock's decapitated body stood alone on the bridge with a fountain of blood spraying from his severed neck. But then he twisted and collapsed beside his own head and lay still.
No.
No!
I know. When I've read that, I was just, I can't believe it. I can't believe they've killed John Singing Rock.
Well, you know what makes it slightly worse is had Singing Rock died heroically achieving something that meant the end of Misquamicus, I could have lived with it.
Yeah.
Right? But
Yeah.
the actual solution is so disappointing.
It is. After he's going out there on his own, he's weary. He's told Harry, "You can't help me. I have to keep doing it." So Harry's at this point is like, "Yeah, I'm off now." And that's when Neil's like, "What?" He's like, "No, we need to stay. We can do it. We've beat them before." Harry's one of my favourite lines says, "I'm not a goddamn martyr. I'm a goddamn mystic."
Yeah.
But anyway, so up above, the humans are focusing on an airstrike, and that's when Neil decides to call on Dunbar. So he goes out onto the bridge on his own and is shouting for them.
It's awful. Whilst I really like the idea of jet fighters trying to destroy Cthulhu and crashing into hillsides, that's great.
Yes.
That would be brilliant in a film, right? What I really don't like is Neil has already had this rant where he says that somebody says that the Indians just gave up, but Neil doesn't buy that. He says the Indians didn't lose because they gave up. The Indians lost because we were more determined.
It was Singing Rock. He said they gave up because they lost hope because of losing lots of stuff.
And Neil's like, no, they lost because we were better.
Yes.
And it's like, oh, is this what you've really learned from this, Neil? Eventually, it gets to the point where Harry wiped sweat from his face and looked up at the towering bulk of Cthulhu, white and heaving and infinitely evil, a mass of wriggling tentacles and cloudy horror. Well, Neil, I guess we're on our own. Neil slowly shook his head. We're not on our own. We never have been. These Indians have called up all their old spirits and demons and ghosts to help them. Why the hell don't we call up ours? What are you talking about? Said Harry. Are you crazy? That's exactly what I'm not. I've been stupid, that's all. Dunbar helped me once and he'll do it again. Dunbar, this is Alan, isn't it, that we've learned?
Yes.
That's what he was trying to tell me. The Indians may have massacred those white settlers up here on Con Creek, but they made a mistake when they chose to use that massacre as a focusing point for all this. They disturbed the spirits of the settlers, right? They disturbed Dunbar's ghost. And that's what I said about the white men licking the red Indians is true. They licked them because they were stronger and better armed and better organised, and in the end they were more determined. Greedier too, said Harry. Sure, they were greedy, but their greed was what made their determination even stronger. And they're not only determined, they're here. They must be. They're just waiting for us to call them like that monster was waiting for the Indians to call them. And that's what he does. He calls up the spirits of the white settlers.
From that massacre, the 20 men with the 20 women and the 53 kids watching, and they shoot the 21 and Misquamicus with their rifles.
With ghost rifles.
Yeah. 20 of them die, which leaves Misquamicus and Broken Fire, who are injured. Broken Fire goes to kill Neil, but is prevented by a spirit, which turns out, might as well do it, which turns out to be his dead brother Jimmy.
Yeah.
Who he crushed in his car when he let the jack slip when they were both boys.
Yeah.
And Oh, I really don't like this.
It's an
McQuam-
awful trite
Mc-
ending.
McQuamicus turns to Harry as if he's going to kill him and then goes, "Do you know what? I'm going to let you live, so you have to think about this all your life, and that I might come and get you at any point,
Yeah.
wherever I might end up." I'm just like, what?
I don't mind that bit quite so much. I don't mind the idea that Miss Guamicus is like, now Miss Guamicus is going to go to the great outside, but his parting shot to Harry is, I'm not going to kill you. I'm just going to leave you terrified that I could come back at any time and turn you inside out. I don't mind that. What I do mind is Singing Rock getting his head lopped off and accomplishing next to nothing, and then Neil solving everything by declaring that the Indians lost because white men were better and more determined, completely rejecting Singing Rock's assertion that the tribes being brutally massacred with bullets, rape, typhoid blankets, booze, gonorrhea, and all these things might have become so despairing that they could no longer have any chance of hope of victory. And then the US government systematically dismantling their culture in the 19th century. But all Neil's taken away from this is no, they lost because we're white, more determined, better organised.
After everything that Singing Rock did,
Awful.
Yeah, it really was.
And I really dislike the end of this book. There are bits about this book that I really, really like. I love the dynamics between Harry and Singing Rock as ever.
It started really good. I like the bit about all the kids and how it started.
Yeah.
I was like, this is a great premise for the follow-up.
Yeah.
And I started and I was really enjoying it, reading it really fast. But the thing about the women, the 2 unnecessary rapes, and then the end, killing off Singing Rock was just wrong. But yeah, and it's like, we've had help all along.
Yeah.
Because we can beat them again because we have before.
Yeah, the end was trite, wrong-headed bullshit.
But going back, I think Alan was bloody Fenner.
Do you?
Yeah, because he's calling for Alan. Are you coming back to help us?
Yeah. So Alan Dunbar was bloody Fenner all along?
No. So Dunbar was the head of the 20.
Yeah.
And he was their guide, was bloody Fenner.
Yeah.
He went off to get help. So they're calling for Alan. Is that you?
Oh,
How you come to help us?
Yeah.
But there's so many really good points of it. But yeah.
So we enjoyed it, Graham.
Overall,
some good stuff. But yeah, I'm afraid the conclusion and the only 2 women in it getting brutally raped, one of them raped to death. No.
And killing off John Singing Rock.
Yeah. Key question though: would you do another Graham Masterton book if we put it on the Halloween poll?
I would.
If it was a Harry Erskine book.
Oh. I would hate to think how it would go after that.
Yeah. Well, from what I understand, there are 2 or 3 more Manitou books.
You did tell me that, yeah.
With Harry Erskine in them.
I've not seen them anywhere, so...
And then there are other Graham Masterton novels written in the 70s and 80s and 90s that Harry Erskine either pops up in a very limited capacity, or is just mentioned, which ties them all into the same sort of novel universe.
I'll tell you why I would. I really enjoyed Manitou.
Yeah.
And I really enjoyed large parts of The Revenge.
Yeah.
There's just the ones we've highlighted, the points we've highlighted that I don't like.
Yeah.
But that's worth saying, yes, I would give it another go.
Yeah. Well, for me now, you've read some of his modern thrillers, and we know that because of the Room 101 episode.
Yeah.
But in terms of his 70s output, I've now read Devil's a D-Day, The Manitou, and Revenge of the Manitou, and I like 2 3/4.
Exactly. I love Devil's a D-Day, so yeah.
Oh no! I also read Plague years ago.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, that's the one that's got some horrific racism in it.
Let's not go there. We don't need to go there again.
Yeah. So I think that was an 80s one. Otherwise, it's a good book about a terrible plague afflicting North America. It's really unpleasant and violent, and it's a good thriller. But oh Christ, there's some choice bits of racism in there.
And we know that from reading a few 1970s books, but I would give it, because Devil's a D-Day was great.
Yeah. All right. Well, we'll give some consideration then.
Yeah.
Maybe a Graham Masterton will be on our shortlist of 4 for Halloween. Because currently I've got Slugs, obviously.
Have you done any, Sean?
No, it's been on the Halloween poll 3 years running. Never been selected. So Slugs is on there because that's a good opportunity for us to watch Slugs the movie as well, which is hilariously terrible. Or it's terribly hilarious and brilliant. Any combination of those things. What else have I got on there? I was going to put Origin of the Crabs on there, but you got me Charnel Caves, so maybe Charnel Caves will go on there. You didn't get me Charnel. Oh, Jenny got me Charnel Caves for my birthday. So Charnel Caves, maybe we should skip straight to a late 2000 teens crab novel to see what the score is there, possibly.
Has it got
Cliff
Davenport?
Cliff. I hope so, but I don't know because I haven't read it. But there was he also did Killer Crabs: The Return in about 2017.
Oh, you said there was quite a few,
well.
yeah.
So we'll give that some thought. What else have I got on there? Slugs. I've forgotten already. Hang on, I think I've got my list somewhere.
Sean Hudson. I've been sat here going, what was his surname?
Oh, I'm going to put The Dollarwaiter's Mother on again, the Ramsey Campbell novel.
I've never read that.
No, Ramsey Campbell's first ever novel.
We met him, didn't we?
Yeah, first one I ever read. Got it off Pops. Yeah, I got him to sign my copy of The Dollarwaiter's Mother.
He was really nice.
Yeah, lovely fellow. We had chip butties with him and Pete Crowther.
We did.
Outside Old English Gent, didn't we?
We did.
Yeah.
And they laughed at me, and I can't remember what I'd done in the signing.
Because you asked me to get him to sign your book because you were too shy. So I said, can you sign this to Philippa? He said, where's Philippa? I said, she's over there, but she's shy. And so from that point onwards, he was like, come here.
That's right. I was so embarrassed.
Yeah, lovely fellow. You do realise that PS Publishing, Pete Crowther's publishing company, when we stay at Fishtail House in Hornsey,
yeah,
PS Publishing's about 15 doors away.
Oh, you did mention that.
Yeah.
But you didn't go and knock on the door, did you?
No, actually, the last couple of times I've been there, the sign has gone, so he might have moved. So, yeah. Well, you know what? We will have the Halloween poll out before long. But for now,
we're just in summer.
Well, yeah, we're in summer, but we're in July, and Halloween's in October, and I've got to put the poll out, with time for people to vote. So I think last year I put the poll out. And also, we've got to record them generally in September and October to get them edited and published. So I need to know what we're going to be covering, and people have got to have time to read them.
And summer holidays are coming up for people.
So I need to probably have the poll concluded by mid-September and have it out for 4 weeks. So I'm going to put the poll out in mid-August, I think.
Which isn't long. It goes so fast.
Yeah, it does go so fast. Yeah. Yeah. Well, you know what? Good choice.
I've enjoyed it.
Yeah. Good choice. And we'll be doing something for Halloween before long.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Phil.
Thank you for inviting me back.
Well,
it's always a pleasure.
You're usually on the sofa at the other 3 feet from me, so you're an easy invite. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Massive thanks to Phil for not just braving, but choosing more Graham Masterton for our Phil's Choice holiday special. We'll have some more horror to talk about in a couple of months, of course, when the Halloween season kicks in, but in the meantime, I'm just going to take time to thank our patrons. Those without tier, of course, first of all, Anthony Piconti, Tim Cardos, Dave Dempster, and Sebastian Weetabix, and our Chaos Engineers Ed Von Stout, Andrew Sickluna, Andrew Spong, Andrew Van Ness, Anthony Porter, Benjamin Fletcher, Ben Hagar, Brandon Mays, Dan Charnley, Dave Griffiths, Dave Voxman, Gabriel Laycock, Harvey Faulkner Aston, Jim Kirkland, Jim Jupp, John W. Lays, Jules Lawrence, Mal Pertwee, Matt Saltz, Michael Hopwood, Nick Hopkinson, Paul McRandall, PJ Cooper, Scott Butler, and Simon Perrins. And of course, thanks to our crafty Jugaderos, Adrian Tchaikovsky, Alexander Harris, Chris Sharp, Christian Hundal, Graham Holden, Kevin Williams, Liam Turner, Loz, Mark Buckley, Mark Taylor, Matthew Broom, Murray Palmer, Urfa Ziv, Sean Twist, Toby White, Taylor Lavery, and, new to the Don Blas, Dave F. As is always the case, I dropped Dave a line to see what's what, and he responded thus. He said, I'm originally from the UK, but have been living in Melbourne, Australia for the past 13 years. My passage into genre fiction is pretty much standard fare for any young child of the 80s, Fighting Fantasy, 2000 AD, Judge Dredd, and then RPGs, etc. But Moorcock always intrigued me, as my brother had a shelf full of pristine Michael Moorcock novels with their evocative and colourful colours. He would always encourage me to read, but was also a book Nazi. One crease or bent spine and you were cut off. So I had to stealthily swipe books when he was out, or grab one and read it in his room until I heard him come home. So my knowledge of Michael Moorcock was often read out of order, and patchy at best, which intrigued me even more. So a few years ago I finally got round to fill in the gaps and started my quest to read all the major Moorcock titles. Hawkmoon is certainly my favourite, and I even ran a mini Black Sword hack campaign where members of Europe's resistance sought out a long-forgotten passage under the Channel in an attempt to bring down the Silver Bridge. Interesting, Dave. We'll be talking about the Hawkmoon RPG before long, and I used the Black Sword Hack Ultimate Chaos Edition, I think it's called, a wee while back when I ran my own Moorcock-esque game. So yeah, hopefully that'll be interesting to you, and who knows, maybe we'll tap you up for a little bit more detail about that campaign you ran. And eternal thanks to our patron demons, Action Edmonds, Alistair Davison, Andrew Clark, Andy Darby, Brian Henderson. Thanks for the increased vote of confidence there, Bri. David Lee, Derek Clunan, Fred Quiche, Gareth Wilson, Glenn Sawyer, Greg Faulkner, Gwen Barlow, Ian Stead, Janie Stim, Jason Vogel, Joachim Sund, Joe Monty, Johan Hiapa, Jonathan Sharp, Lee Gary, Liam Jones, Marius Litauskas, Mark Hebden, Miles Reed-Labato, Neil Burton, Paul Hillary, Randall Gatlin, Steve Round, Tom Murphy, Tony Malazzo, the OG patron Norman Beresford, and last but of course never least, Robert McMillan. Okay, enough of my nonsense. Don't forget you can follow us on Instagram and Blue Sky with the handle @BreakfastRuins. You can email us at breakfastruins@outlook.com. The webpage is breakfastintheruins.com. We've got our Patreon page too, of course, and there are a few extra odds and sods on there, including a brand new Weetabix file, and more to come there soon. But until next time, wherever you are in the world, whatever's going on in your turf, take care, stay safe, and we will meet again soon on the Moonbeam Roads.